Good morning, everyone. Dignitaries on the dais and dignitaries and dear friends. It gives me great pleasure to stand in a university, in an institution where my ancestors have always also been, have visited and have preceded me, and also to be speaking in the same hall where Gurudev Ravindra Tagore also spoke. I don't believe I am worthy of this honor, but I am very grateful that I have been honored thus, because my presence over here is merely because of the accident of my birth, and not truly because of what I have achieved in my life, because there's a lot more that needs to be done before one can consider having achieved things. And in present circumstances in our society, it becomes even more necessary for people to realize how much we need to do to restore the nation for which our ancestors fought. Some of them from that generation I can spot in the audience also. We have to protect that India that had been conceived and liberated by the sacrifices of people. Unfortunately, in 75 years, the country has changed its character willfully and involuntarily. But unfortunately, what we see today of the country is not what our founders had ever imagined it to be. Our liberation was successful because of our unity, the way Indians united to throw off the yokel of slavedom and become liberated. At that time, we were not divided on the lines of castes or religion or in any other manner. Unfortunately, in 75 years, our favorite blame game that the British used to divide and rule is now true for our leaders today. They have also realized that dividing the electorate ensures success in grabbing power. And we continuously keep being divided. There are very few voices that talk about unity and talk about being together. As soon as elections are announced, we see that there is a preponderance of hate in the campaign, hate and divisiveness. And unfortunately, we succumb to it. At election times, we forget that we are Indians, and we start thinking about our caste and our community, which becomes much more important, and it becomes easier for political parties to rig the election process in a manner by providing caste-based representative. Instead of ability-based representatives to represent us, we get representatives who belong to the majority caste in that constituency, or in certain cases to a minority caste in that constituency, if the majority caste votes can be divided. So success is also based on the ability to divide us, not to unite us in electoral politics also. And unfortunately today, we see such irresponsible behavior right from the top to the bottom. There used to be a time when the position that one held, the constitutional position that one held, used to dictate the manner in which one spoke in public. It is no longer true. They all speak in a divisive manner. But what is essential for us to realize is, why do they get away with it? Why are they so successful when they are not appealing to the majority of the people? If we are united, we will be able to see that nothing is attractive about these politically elected representatives that we send to the local assemblies and to the parliament of the nation. And unfortunately, that is true across the spectrum of politics. Today, the only choice that we have in our democracy is to choose from amongst the bad options. We do not have an ideal option to choose from. How did that happen in a short span of less than 8 decades? We must introspect. Why is it that people who should not be anywhere in public life are today our leaders? We must think about this. How did this happen in such a short time? Think about it. 4 decades ago, in our city councils, in our state assemblies, in our national parliament, the kind of representatives who sat and governed our country, and then compare them to those who you send today to these elected bodies. And I think it is shameful for us that we over and over again elect the same kind of people who should be nowhere in public life. Because the only success in electoral politics today we see is the person who is able to manipulate the best, not the person who stands by ideals. Yes, some of them do stand by ideals, but that is a very minority. And today we notice Karnataka has suffered that, of changing ideologies. You get elected on one party's symbol, within 6 months, because of the lust of power or money, the temptation of money, they change over. Maybe later on they change back. And your elected results, the value of your vote keeps getting diminished. And it is shameful that these kind of betrayers get re-elected to the voter, to the assemblies and things, even after they have betrayed the trust, the vote placed in them by the voters. Forget about their betrayal of the party and everything. But their betrayal of voters is not punished by voters. It indicates how morally corrupt our society has become. Because Britishers or Pakistanis don't come to vote in our elections. Indians vote in our elections. And yet, each and every time we elect people who should never be seen in our public bodies. A majority of them, I'm not condemning everybody, but a lot of them are undeserving of even getting the support of 100 voters, let alone a majority of the voters in that constituency. And yet, they win with thumping majorities. It is because we ourselves, as a society, have become morally corrupt and ethically downgraded. We have to introspect why it is so easy for politically motivated people to sway us. I have heard stories about the polarization of Mangaluru. What good is it to remember that Mahatma Gandhi came to Mangaluru 3 times? If Mangaluru today is going to behave in such a radicalized manner, why is it that on one hand Mangaluru takes pride in claiming that Mahatma Gandhi visited Mangaluru thrice, and on the other hand, the dominant ideology in Mangaluru is the ideology of his murderers, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. It is a matter of shame. Either the respect for Gandhi is false, or the message of Gandhi has been discarded. In either case, it is shameful. This is what we must all introspect on. Anyone who talks divisive ideology, anyone who preaches divisive messages is an anti-national. Remember that. No matter how much they claim to be patriots, they are anti-nationals because they do not respect our Constitution. Our Constitution, in its preamble, emphasizes, in its opening line, emphasizes unity, equality, and justice. Just ask yourself, in our public life, are any of those values reflected today? I know the subject I was given is relevance of Gandhi's ideology for today's youth. And I purposely talk about this because it is the responsibility of the youth today to bring India back to its senses. We have gone insane with hatred. Hatred on the basis of region, hatred on the basis of language, hatred on the basis of caste, hatred on the basis of gender, and of course, hatred on the basis of religion. And none of this is healthy for the future of India. It is a terminal illness that instead of love, fraternity, and unity, today hatred has become our creed. No country can survive if it is going to suspect the person sitting next to them. If we are going to ask ourselves whether the person sitting next to us is of our own caste or of our own religion, that means that we do not trust our fellow Indians. And this is a terrible symptom to have in a country which prides itself on being a multi-hued rainbow nation. Just imagine a rainbow with all the 7 bands of colors divided and separated. Would you still call it a rainbow? No. We only call it a rainbow and appreciate it because all the 7 colors, keeping their distinct identity separate, are united in forming that beautiful phenomenon of nature. Are we today that way, or are we like 7 colors separated, not combining to become beautiful. Every day, not a single day passes before we read of news that is divisive, hateful, and ridiculous. A young boy is thrown out of school because he carries biryani in his lunchbox in Uttar Pradesh. Why is that acceptable? And just because it happened in Uttar Pradesh, why don't we feel angry in Karnataka? Is it not the same country? Are we not governed by the same constitution? A young boy, 1 year back, a young boy was punished by his school teacher, principal, by asking other young boys in the same class to slap him because he was a Muslim. And the principal kept abusing that young child while she was encouraging the other children to hit him hard. It was all on video. The shamelessness is that when today these kind of crimes are committed, they want to film themselves committing those crimes because they think it is their duty to do such things. And who taught them to do that? Those who are sitting in power in Delhi. It is because of the hate that the Prime Minister and the Home Minister of this country continuously popularize in their messages that people are getting swayed and turning insane. A policeman murders Muslims traveling in a train, whom his duty is to protect. He is on that train because he has to protect the passengers. What does he do? Use his duty weapon, find out Muslim passengers and shoots them dead. And what do the other non-Muslim passengers do in that train? They take videos of him. In Indore, on a busy thoroughfare, in broad daylight, a woman is raped. People stand and watch the rape being committed, and some of them even film that rape being committed. What kind of society are we living in? Do we have a right to even call ourselves civilized? Not 4 people in that crowd thought that they could grab that rapist and protect that woman. That was the rapist so powerful that even 4 people could not overpower him and arrest him and put him, throw him away aside. Forget about beating him up. What kind of cowardice is this? Why have we become like this? We are the same people, we are the descendants of the same people who fought the mighty British, whether it was the non-violent satyagrahi or the revolutionary. We fought the almighty British and threw them out of our country. And today we are scared of even fighting off criminals. We call this Amrit Kal. What kind of Amrit is this? I'm sorry, I have nothing good to say today. Because our society forces people like me to try to become mirrors that reflect the reality of what we are becoming today ourselves. Someone very correctly said crime is not successful because the criminal is an expert. But crime succeeds because the witnesses remain quiet. They decide that it is not their responsibility to fight against that crime. Today, why don't we stand up when we see injustice being done to our fellow citizens? Why do we have to find out their caste and community before coming to their rescue? Think about all this. Think where we have reached in a short span of just about 78 years. Why have we deteriorated and degraded as a nation to this extent? Mob lynching happens. Innocent people are lynched and killed. And we say, okay, it didn't happen in my city, it didn't happen in my area, it didn't happen in my state, so I'm not bothered. It is happening in our country, and with every crime, our country is being degraded, our country is being divided, our country is being fragmented. It doesn't matter with, after that, if you fly your flag, the Tiranga. Remember, invisible stains of the blood of those innocent victims is on that Tiranga too. Because we kept quiet. We did not stand up for the truth. And just imagine, if when Shahid Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Subhash Chandra Bose and Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi stood up and called for the Indians to fight for freedom. If the present day generation had been living over there, I don't think even one person would have stood up and said, okay, we are ready to fight with you. And those people would have been called mad people who had nothing better to do. Because people like me today, who have the courage to at least tell the truth, are considered to be mad. Invitations to me get cancelled more than my appearance. When I am invited today, I only believe it when I am standing on the stage, that then I will be allowed to speak. Because they come up with ingenious excuses to cancel my invitation because they are afraid of what I will speak, because they cannot control my tongue. We are talking about with Modi 3, the debate about unified civil code has been restarted. Why is it that wherever in all the states where the unified civil code has been applied, changes have only been made to the Muslim personal laws, whereas every community has their own personal laws? If it has to be a uniform civil code, then why are not all the specific personal laws being erased to be replaced by truly secular laws? Nobody is talking about that. It is such a big change that will come if this ruling party in the center is allowed to get away with it. We have forgotten that in a democracy, debate is the most essential procedure for any change to happen. That is why we have houses of representatives, whether it is in the state or in the center. Why is it that all the major changes that this government in the center has implemented in the last 3 terms, 2.5 or 2 and a little bit more term that they have been in power, been passed without parliamentary debates, by minority votes in the parliament, or by ordinance, which are all anti-democratic processes? Why on the streets are we not raising our voices saying we will not allow these kind of undemocratic procedures to be acceptable? and we will reject the changes to the constitution and new laws that you have brought in without ethical parliamentary processes. We have to now say ethical parliamentary processes because the new parliamentary process that Modi and his combine have brought about is undemocratic and unparliamentary. And we have accepted it without raising a murmur. Indira Gandhi also experimented with authoritarianism. She suspended the constitution and brought in emergency. It was a first step towards autocracy, towards dictatorship. But she understood because her upbringing was democratic. She realized that it was wrong. She was also made to realize it was wrong. But for somebody who is that powerful at that time, the ego is much more than the sense of right and wrong. We are seeing that today in Delhi, where everything is because of a single man's ego. That everything happens because Modi hai to mumkin hai. Is this democracy? Are we not concerned as citizens of this country? Are we not concerned about how our democracy is being corrupted? It isn't as if there were not other leaders who behaved in an authoritarian manner, but they never ever fiddled with the process of democracy. Today is the first time that we are seeing our democratic processes being corrupted, being made inconsequential. Who should be concerned about this the most? As citizens, we should be concerned because finally when democracy is corrupted and replaced, we will lose the power and the rights that are enshrined in our constitution. It's not just the parliamentary elections which are fought on the basis of protecting the constitution. Even we will have to fight the assemblies, we will have to fight the governing bodies of cities and villages. Because if they are not strong enough, resistance to autocracy will not happen and it will become easy for changing of the constitution. In Modi 3, they are now changing the constitution through the back door. By changing laws, changing procedures, changing things independently without saying that it is to be done so that we can one day discard the constitution because it will become irrelevant for us. And the youth, you have to be worried about this because our time is gone. What happens in the next 1 decade or 1.5 decades will matter to my generation. But what happens in the next century will decide how you are going to live, what kind of citizens you will be, whether you will be citizens of a democracy or you will be subjects of an autocracy. Remember the difference between being a subject and being a citizen. A subject has no rights. A subject has no power. A subject gets everything because the ruler decides that you can have this much and no more, whereas a citizen has all the rights enshrined by the constitution and the legal process of that country. It is for the youth to decide whether they will remain as citizens of the country or live as subjects. The more appropriate term for subjects is slaves. Do you want to live as slaves in a country which your ancestors sacrificed to liberate? Will within a span of 3 generations, will you allow yourself to become slaves once more? Think about all these questions. Gandhi's relevance is in the sense of power of the weakest of the weak citizens and those who feel they are not at all of any consequence, because in a democracy they become the most important person. Bapu, the first interim government that was selected to oversee the transition from the British rule to Indian liberation and then to form the Constitution of India. When the ministers of the interim government went to seek the blessings of Bapu, he gave them a message. He said that this is my message to you, and if you work according to this message, then you will truly serve the people. And he told them that whenever you think about doing something and you think that you have a question whether it is going to be truly beneficial for the people you intend it for, he said, imagine the face of the weakest and the poorest person you have ever met. And then you ask yourself honestly whether what you intend to do will make any difference in his or her life. Whether it will enable that person to change his circumstances and become more self-reliant, more self-sufficient, more capable to look after himself. Will it bring him or her out of the darkness of illiteracy and make him literate? And he said, only if the honest answer to that question is yes, what you intend to do will liberate the people from the misery of poverty, from the misery of illiteracy, from the misery of hopelessness, and make their tomorrow better, then tell yourself that what you do is worthwhile. Otherwise, remember, you are doing it only for your own glory and not truly for the benefit of the people. Unfortunately, today, our own elected governments have forgotten that message. It is time that the citizens of India remind them that message, remind them of their duty, remind them that they are the servants and we are the masters, and not the other way around as it has become popular and prevalent today. Why do we have this culture of VIPs if in a democracy, if in a constitution, everybody is said to be equal? Why do we allow this VIP culture to thrive? Shouldn't every citizen be a VIP in his or her own country? It is because we silently allow these kind of disparities to be institutionalized that it happens more and more. Today, a leader is not recognized because of his or her work. They are recognized as leaders because they have 10 armed bodyguards protecting them. And they go out in the car, there are escort vehicles who inconvenience the normal citizens, and we allow that to happen. Why should they have that privilege? Think of all these things. You may think these are such small matters, because it is from these small matters that the differences become institutionalized. Why did Gandhi never have to have armed guards to proclaim him as a leader? Think about it. I, as a child, have played and sat in the laps of prime ministers and presidents. Their bodyguards never checked me for guns or weapons or anything before I was placed in the laps of such important people. Because they did not want that kind of difference between the common people and themselves. Today the leaders know that without the paraphernalia of leadership, nobody will respect them, nobody will recognize them, because their work does not speak for them. And yet, we keep supporting these people. Are we like a flock of sheep? Or do we have the intellect given to us by the Creator? Whoever created us. I am an atheist, so I don't believe in God. Today I feel that India should remove secular from its constitution and call itself an atheist country, because the greatest curse on India is its religions. Each and every religion practiced in India has in its own way destroyed the idea of India. It's time we discard them. I'm not saying that the individuals must not practice their religions. But this official patronage of religion, this official identification of caste, why do we tolerate leaders who come with big tikkas and pagdis advertising their caste to us? Because they want to exploit that identity. At that point of time, we forget that we are a secular country. They are welcome to have their pujas and their tikkas and everything in their homes, not in their offices, not in public spaces. We also must get over this habit of caste-based. You know why Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi introduced the Congress cap for all congressmen? Because before that, whenever he went to a Congress convention, he noticed that all the leaders would be dressed to advertise their caste and their community. And they were like peacocks, wearing all sorts of headgear, having all sorts of tilaks on their forehead and everything. And he realized that this mentality is the one that encourages caste and religion divisions, because it is institutionalizing it. And when he took control of the Congress, he said every congressman will wear the same white Congress cap, which does not advertise his religion, which does not advertise his caste, and which makes them all have just one identity of the Satyagrahi or the congressman. Today, even in the Congress, we don't see that uniformity. Forget about the religion-based exploitative parties. This is a misfortune that we have. This is a regression that even after 78 years of independence, We still revert to our caste and community identities so easily. Secularism is a mere word that is not understood and not at all practiced. And I, for one, believe that the time has come when it has to be discarded, along with the public practice and public exhibition of all religions. And that is why we need to have an atheist India, which does not officially practice or believe in any religion. And that is why a government can't bring in laws which allows community or caste or religion-based identities in government service either. The recent move to allow government officials to join RSS organizations is one more step in weakening the secular democratic form of India. Because just imagine a policeman or a babu sitting in his office in a RSS uniform. Will a minority person feel the confidence that this man who identifies his ideology will work for us without any partiality? But that is exactly what they want the minorities to feel. It is not their allegiance to that institution. It is their strategy to bring in not just the Hindu Rashtra, but the caste hierarchy based Hindu Rashtra, where caste will decide the amount of citizen rights that you will be allowed to practice. Think about this. To the youth, I would like to say, today is your day when you have to take responsibility for this country. If anybody tells you that tomorrow you can take charge of this country, don't listen to them. Your duty to this nation starts today. And you must take responsibility. So what if you are studying? Yes, studies are your priority. But you have enough time to devote to society and to the nation. Please start doing that. Unfortunately, officially in our curriculum and in our syllabus, we don't allow the students to have that luxury that many Western students have of taking a gap year. Many students between school and university take a gap year, or between graduation and post-graduation take a gap year. And they go volunteer in organizations all over the world for that 1 year. It helps when they go back to seek admissions to their masters. It also benefits the society. It also instills the idea of service without gains in the young minds. Unfortunately, NSS is there, but NSS has also become like one subject that we have to do. It hasn't instilled the quality of serving that it should have. But that will only happen if you voluntarily embrace that attitude, that you owe something to the country of which you are a citizen. Please remember all these things. Gandhi is, as an individual, does not remain relevant after his death. The ideology that he lived by and practiced all his life is a timeless ideology. It is the only method by which society, civilization, and nations can survive. And in today's situation, where our existence is being challenged by global warming, climate change, and what we see, the devastation brought about by natural calamities. It is because we have exploited the nature. And if we have to live a sustainable life, then what Gandhi practiced in his ashram, the way of life that Gandhi practiced in his ashrams, becomes inevitable for all of us, because that is the only sustainable lifestyle which nature can sustain, where we and all living things can survive and thrive side by side, where nature can once again become our partner and not our adversary. So study all these things. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I may have angered a lot of people, but I'll be very happy if I've done that. Thank you.